Rebbe started speaking about the levels of the Baal Shem Tov and the Mizritcher Magid, that they correspond to Keser. And the two levels of Keser that we spoke about before are the levels of Oirin Sof Lamaila Maila Den Ketz, that's Atik Yoimen, because that's completely uprooted from the worlds, it's completely removed from the worlds. That's why it's called Atik, from the word Netak Venivdol, whereas Arich Ampin, that has to do already with the Ampin, with the faces, with the Yoimen. It already relates to the worlds, even though it's higher than it. That's the Oirin Sof, the way it's Lamata Mata the Tachlis. And we started to explain that these are two levels in Keser, also corresponds, Atik and Arich correspond to the Baal Shem Tov and the Mizritcher Magid. And we started saying the Baal Shem Tov's Hanhage was such that he didn't take in consideration the world, that the world was something that he did in a way of a Baal Shemske Hanhage. He didn't consider anything of the world. It was beyond the world. But it wasn't in such a way that he didn't impact. Adrabah, he dealt with every single Jew, and he revealed the hidden treasure that's in them, that by asking even ordinary people and asking them different questions about themselves and getting them to answer in Baruch Hashem, praise be Hashem, etc. And when they say it, they meant Hashem's very essence. In other words, the most highest levels are in Sof L'mayla Ma'adan Ketz. So we're going to continue on the 5th page of the copies, page Lamed Hey, the first line. Let's explain the Torah become in many places at length. Ordinary people, regular people, do not know of any descriptions and midas above, etc., spheres. They're not familiar with all these levels. They don't even know the level to which, when we say Baruch Hashem, is referring to, or praised be Hashem, all these things, they don't even know what level that is referring to. When you say Oibishter, that means the one above. And the name is also descriptions. This explains a name is a revelation, and Elyon of Eibishter is also something, but they don't define that in their mind as such. When they say this, their intention is what's brought down in the expression of Chazal, that they are davening to him and not to his attributes. They mean him. They don't mean Hashem, the level of Hashem's name, the revelation, etc. Atzmei Muhusi is Baruch, his very essence. Because they're not aware at all of the existence of his attributes. Their entire intention is only to Hashem himself. Like the statement is, I am davening to this, to the mind of this child. In other words, I daven to Hashem like a child. I put aside all my knowledge of spheres, and I daven in a childlike manner. The same thing, the ordinary person, when he says Baruch Hashem and Geloyt is Daribishter, he is speaking in a way how a child would speak, without any knowledge of levels, etc. The Rebbe uses the expression that this great person who was a Makubal said, I am davening to the das of the Tinnik. But even das is already something. The entire idea of das doesn't even apply. He doesn't even know of the existence of spheres. All he knows is, to him, that's what he's davening, and not to his attributes, not to his character traits. V'hainu, what does this mean in regards to what we were just now speaking about, the Baal Shem Tov being the level of Eretz of L'mayla Ma'adan Ketz? That level that was by Baal Shem Tov, as he was in his own place, before sharing it with others, in other words, completely removed from the world, not having any connection with the spheres and the midas whatsoever, totally beyond that. That level he drew down also in the Jewish towns when he went to visit the Yidden and they answered him Baruch Hashem to his questions. So then he revealed in them that same level that he was at, the level of Oren Sof Lamayla and Ketz. So that's the level of the Baal Shem Tov. Now he's going to go on to the level of the Mizritcher Magid, so too, it's also in the way how the Mizritcher Magid acted. Because in such a manner, he would say his teachings to his students, but these very teachings were said in the way of points. They weren't in such a way that were fully explained and elaborated, not in a way of Chabad. This was the Mizritcher Magid that was pre-Chabad, so it wasn't in the explanation manner of using all the levels of Chacham bin Adas, and it wasn't the level of Yisparnus that it says concerning that the Sefer of Zohar, the idea of Kabbalah, should be something that one should be sustained by. When it's in a level of points, where it's not well elaborated, so the Rebbe always speaks about, so then it's not a level of Yisparnus. When is it Yisparnus that we are sustained by it, we are like fully fed by it and illuminated by it? This is something when we have it in Chabad. So it wasn't the level of Chabad by the Mizritcher Magid, Elobay from the Nekudas, but rather it was in the way of points. The Mizritcher Magid's Toides is in the way of points. That relates to the second level of Kesser, the lower level of Kesser. Inyan Arich Ampin, that's the level of the long face, or the long faces. It already is connected to the level of faces, which is the level of days, the spheres of Atzilus. It's a root for the level of the faces, meaning the level of the spheres of Atzilus, the Yoimin of Atzilus. But it's only in the level of Arich, which means that it's in a way that's bligvul, it's not finite and explained and broken down, and therefore it's only in a way of a root. That is in the Oren Sof itself, the way it's already has to do with lower. That's the idea of Oren Sof Lamata Din Tachlis. In such a manner, he would say Torah Tamid of his students. He drew down the infinite light of Hashem down below to no end. So he says in Ois Daled, Valpize Yesh Levai Gam Shtei Torahs Ikrias She'amru HaBal Shem Tov Harav Magid. According to this, we can explain two primary Torahs. One that the Baal Shem Tov said, and the other that the Mizritcher Magid said, based on what we explained, what their levels were. Shtei Torahs Eilu Mas'imus La'amshachas Shehimshichu K'niskaleil. These two Torahs that we're about to mention correspond to the types of Amshachas that the Baal Shem Tov and Mizritcher Magid brought down, like we spoke about before. One of the teachings that we bring down in Torah Chassidus in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, we could say the Mash Mevim in Yezabishem Baal Shem Tov who Lefisha Zel Mein Yanamai Ikrin the Baal Shem Tov. We could say the reason why we quote the Baal Shem Tov on this is because this was one of the primary ideas of the Baal Shem Tov. In other words, not necessarily everything that we bring from the Baal Shem Tov is necessarily pointed out and quoted as being of the Baal Shem Tov. In this case, it's pointed out as being of the Baal Shem Tov. Why? Because this Torah that we're about to quote is a core aspect of what the Baal Shem Tov was about. And what is that? It's the statement of Baal Shem Tov, the essence, when you grasp some of it, At the toifes bekula, you grasp all of it. Just like if you hold on to something, it could be huge. You cannot hold it all in your hand. It could be much, much bigger than a human being. But you're holding on to it, so it doesn't make a difference if you're holding on to a little part, you're still holding on. This indicates you netak v'nivdol legamri megeder miktsasoi v'kuloi. The fact that because you're dealing with the essence, that is why you're able to grasp all of it through grasping some of it. That means that the level of essence is something that defies the limitation of some and all. Because if it would be defined and limited by some and all, so then if you grasp some of it, that's all you have some of it. If you grasp all of it, you have all of it. The fact that with grasping some, you could have all, that means that the essence transcends any type of definition of size and measurement of some and all. And still in all, still in all, the Baal Shem Tov uses the term grasp. Something that defies measurements, the word grasp seemingly shouldn't apply. It's explained in many places. I'm sorry, I skipped the line. 2 lines. Back to line 15. That even though he uses the word tfisa, the essence, when you grasp some of it, you grasp its entirety. There's also brought down the expression that no thought can grasp Hashem. It's explained in many places what thought are we referring to. We're not just talking about the thought of human beings. We're not just talking about the thoughts of created beings like neshamas, malachim, or even the spheres of Atzilus. But also, the Adam Kadmon. The intention in this is also in the supernal thought of primordial Adam, the first level on the Kav, after its Tzimtzum, that it's applicable to use the word machshava. Even that, it says, the Zohar is including where it says, less machshava tfisa. So, we see how removed the Ein Sof is from the concept of tfisa. Yet here the Baal Shem Tov says a term of tfisa, v'afal became line 19, still in all Omer Baal Shem Tov, Alzel Lashon Toifa is still in all Baal Shem Tov says concerning the essence, that defies measurements of some and all, and therefore by grasping some, you grasp all of it. So on this essence that's beyond all of that, he says the term Toifus. So that's the idea. How could it be the idea of grasp? Because the Baal Shem Tov, that was he himself was on the level of Ein Sof L'mayla Den Ketz, drew down that level of Ein Sof L'mayla Den Ketz to even ordinary people, that they should be able to have a grasp in it in this type of way of etzem tefes miktsasei, the tefes bekuli. So here is a Torah, the Baal Shem Tov, that expresses the Baal Shem Tov's inyan of Ein Sof L'mayla Den Ketz, along with the idea that he drew this down to the lowest levels. So too we find a teaching of the Mezritcher Magid that reflects the level that the Mezritcher Magid was about. It's known, the 2 Sforim of the Mezritcher Magid. So he says, when we say Sforim of a certain Rebbe, it could be a sefer that that Rebbe actually authored and wrote. Then there could be Sforim that were written by others as a transcription of what he said. For example, the Alter Rebbe, the Shulchan Aruch and the Tanya are Sforim that the Alter Rebbe wrote himself. And then the Torah and Torah, these are Mamorim that were recorded, and then afterwards some Tzedek compiled them and so on, etc. So he says about the two Sfarim of the Mizritcher Magid, it wasn't Sfarim that the Mizritcher Magid wrote. But rather, he says in the parentheses, line 23, they were written by his students. To such a degree, but that it seems to be that the Mizritcher Magid did see these transcriptions of his teaching. So even though he didn't actually write these the two Sfarim of the Mizritcher Magid that are attributed to him, though he didn't write it, but they still are things that were to his review. He saw it. Anyway, so both the Sfarim, Maschilim b'Torah shetoichnahu, begin with the teaching that the content is Asher Hayachas the Bnei Yisrael v'Hakadosh Baruch Hu Kimshala Ava Ben, that the relationship between the Yidden and Hashem are like the example of a father and a son. A son and father and son in general is a descent, a chain descent, one from the other. From the son, from the father comes about via descent the son. Therefore, the father is higher than the son and precedes the son. Above there, the Mizritcher Magid explains, in the metaphor of a father in a son, top of the page Lamed Zayin, the son is engraved in the thought of the father, even when the child left the presence of his father. But there's a condition. The son had to be in existence. It's just once he existed, so even if the son is not in the presence of the father, the son is engraved in his father. That it's possible to say that even prior to even before the Jewish people were created, that the form, the image of the Jewish people were engraved in Hashem's thought. What does that mean? That the child, the son, the Jewish people are found in the essence of the father, before the birth of the son, even before the pregnancy of the son, even before how the form of the child is found in the droplet of the father. But rather, the son is found, the way the son is found in the essence of the father, in the relationship of the Yidden and Hashem, their very image is engraved by Hashem. When Nimtza comes out, that in that source level, the son and the father are on the same level, and therefore the image never leaves. Was never a time when the image was not there. So he says that relates to the second level that we were talking about, the Mizritcher Magid. The level of the faces, the level of Seder Ishtalshlus, which is Avu Ben, who ba'oifen da'arich, is in the way it's up there in the highest, most level. So you have the levels, but they're all above. That's the idea of the Mizritcher Magid. These two levels of Atik and Arach, Baal Shem Tov, Rav Magid, hem Sfira Achas, Sfiras HaKeser, and Nekuda Achas. Really, there are two sides of the same Sfira, the Sfiras HaKeser. Therefore, the two sides are the same point. They're not two separate levels completely. It's the point of Keser, it's beyond the point of Chachma. Let's explain in many places. Chachma is a lot of times connected with the idea of a point. This point of Keser transcends this. Afterwards, this topic was explained in the Mamarim of all the Rabbeim, and till the leader of our generation. And the Rebbe concludes about the leader of our generation, the previous Rebbe, Asher Basar Reisha Gufa Azel. The body always follows the head. So the head of the generation takes us along with him. V'anosi hu'akoil, and the leader is everything and everyone. Like was explained previously at length in the Maimer Baslagani of Yitzvat. Those two aspects of Keser were transmitted to and distributed to every single person through our Rabbein. The Rebbe says in the brackets, and to note from what was mentioned earlier in the Basalagani Maimer, this idea of Atik V'Arach brought down the Zoyar and the Kabbal's form after the Zoyar and the writings of Arizal, Beitz Chaim, Mishmoyne Shorim, and all these different forms. We could say about this. Though this was these levels were mentioned even before the writing of the teachings of Baal Shem Tov and the Mizrach Magid, specifically in these Sfarim, these come down into detailed spheres. It says in the footnote that this is not exactly clear, the complete point over here that the Rebbe is saying. This is what Hashem said to Moshe. Why cry out to me? What are you crying out to me? Speak to the Bnei Yisrael and let them travel. The drawing down of the level of the holy Atik. Like we said before, we call it the Zoyar B'Atik. Italian Milsa, this is dependent on Atik, top of page Lamed Ches. HaKoilol Atik V'Arich, which includes both the level of Atik and the level of Arich. Oyer himself L'mayla than Ketz, L'mata than Tachel is the infinite light of Hashem, which is higher to no end and below to no end. Who b'shvil nitzach and alachamad b'nei Yisrael, for the sake of the victory of the war of the Jewish children of the Yin. Dabar of Bnei Yisrael v'Yisrael, speak to the Bnei Yisrael and they shall travel. That's the purpose of all of this. But this treasure is distributed through the ministers and through the officers. That's why it says Hashem said to Moshe specifically. Because the Amshach is specifically through Moshe, who are the officers over the army. If they were merited, so then the redemption from Mitzrayim would have been such a way of a geula, of a redemption that no exile followed it. Like it says in Kriyas Yamsuf, you will bring them and you will plant them in the mountain of your inheritance. Hashem will reign forever. That the mountain of the Beis Hamikdash would be forever, and Hashem would reign forever. It will be an everlasting redemption, that there's no exile following it. Then there will be then would have been a complete conquest and the perfect and the complete victory in the war. But afterwards, because of whatever reason it was, and primarily because of the great scheme that Hashem has on the people, that He wants more avodah. The matter was delayed much more time. Now the matter is dependent on our actions and service throughout the entire time of Golus, as part of all our actions and service for the all 6,000 years that the world existed. The avoid is that you should speak to the Bnei Yisrael, they shall travel, way it was given over by Moshe himself. Hashem told him, speak to the Bnei Yisrael, they shall travel. This message to Moshe Rabbeinu is an everlasting thing that's applicable now also. Because the Torah is everlasting in general. Especially all the actions of Moshe are everlasting. Surely, specifically the speech or the directives and the toil of Moshe are everlasting. And especially a directive that Moshe gave over from Hashem as a joining connector, intermediary. Like Moshe Rabbeinu said, I am standing between Hashem and you. That it shall be speak to Bnei Yisrael and they shall travel. From this we come to the splitting of the sea. The Kriyas Yamsuf the splitting of the sea brings the revelation of the Torah Mashiach, like we spoke about earlier. That the study of the Torah Mashiach will be in a way of vision. It won't be any more that man will teach his fellow, because all will know me. Mashiach came speedily in our days mamish in the true and complete redemption through Mashiach Tzidkenu.